T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3.
What about the statement that you can only create absolute scarcity once? I find this to be very profound, and I kind of intellectually work around it in my mind. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think the circumstances of Bitcoin's birth are unrepeatable. And I think if another competitor were to take over Bitcoin, then that competitor would face the same problem and recursively. So I think the social contract that we sort of implicitly agreed to is we're all going to treat this thing as if it's unique and scarce, and it became unique and scarce. And there's also historical contingencies, which mean that Bitcoin had amazing advantages. It could have gone much worse, the launch of Bitcoin. I think it went as well as conceivably possible. You had this almost 2-year period where it was worth basically nothing. And so it was kind of freely dispersed. And because it wasn't monetized from scratch, you didn't have all these like predatory funds come in and try and get all the Bitcoin, So like if you compare it to other times you've had to distribute things to communities from scratch, think about the privatization of the Soviet Union after it collapsed. You had these voucher programs that were distributed to citizens of what became Russia. And what happened was a lot of them sort of didn't really understand the value of the thing. And they sold them really cheaply to all these funds, and the oligarchs managed to get all the vouchers. So if you have a system where it's valuable from the start, there's going to be an extreme incentive for larger players to come up and acquire all of the units. But if it's valueless at the start, then it's the hobbyists that acquire it. So we went right to the precise, correct constituency who did the faucets, they distributed the coins. Laszlo had 80,000 coins. He got rid of them through his pizza transactions. He had all of this generosity, but it wasn't so difficult because Bitcoin's worthless. And this gave it a base of hobbyists and users, as opposed to, a handful of hedge funds. If Bitcoin had been monetized from the start, and we obviously see this with coin offerings today, the first buyers are all hedge funds. If it had been monetized from the start, it wouldn't have had that opportunity. And it wouldn't have been able to get this buy-in from this amazingly diverse kind of global community of users. So I think the circumstances are unique. And now that digital money exists as a concept, you can't repeat that. Because if you were to make a Bitcoin 2.0 and somehow Satoshi returned and said, hey, I've built a better Bitcoin, like I'm going to start now, that would, billions of dollars would immediately flow in from the largest funds in the world to try and get a privileged access to the system. So I hate it when people downplay the circumstances of Bitcoin's birth. They are totally unique and unrepeatable. Very, very special origin story, I think. One of the best kind of myths, but it's a true story. So it's amazing.
I think that's a great place to wrap this up because that is the most perfect summation of Bitcoin. And very few were around then. Max and I got involved in early 2011. And people always say, oh, I wish I were there back then. But it was a totally different thing. Bitcoin was a different thing. People were spending it wildly. Everybody thinks like they would be a multi-billionaire today had they been there then. With the knowledge that they have today, back then, like we thought it was magic internet money for real. And as you mentioned, like loads of people had faucets. Marty Malmi ran a faucet, gave away thousands of Bitcoin. Obviously, had he known where it was going to go, he wouldn't have done that. That was a stupid thing. But I love that as an ending. And I love that you also said about the price signal being very important with Bitcoin because it does reveal the price of Bitcoin reveals a lot about the truth of the world around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,